सिंगल चल रहा है. We are live. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد اللهم وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل. أما بعد فقد قال أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه الصلاة والسلام ورجل قمش جهلا موضع في جهال الأمة عاد في أغباش الفتنة صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Continuing with this khutbah number 17 from Nahj al-Balaghah, we are on the second part of this khutbah, and then inshallah there will be the third sequel of it. If I can take you back to the first portion, there was a sermon at a glance. So now we're going to be talking about part number 2. The second group includes ignorant individuals posing as scholars who without any competence assume judicial authority. And of course the third part, which we will discuss next week, will include Imam's complaint about these individuals who have turned away from the Quran, viewing good as evil and evil as good. There are a lot of akhlaqi messages that could be drawn from that portion, inshallah, which we will discuss next week. So we did this last week, so just wanted to recap on that. Part 2 is alimane jahil numa, pretentious, ignorant scholars, if you want to call it. These are some of the words, because it's a lengthy khutbah, so I won't spend too much time in the explanation of the words, but they do help. These are the words that are being used. Qamasha jahalan, the one who gathered ignorance. Muzi'un, those who are actively participating. And then in the sentence itself is Muzi'un fi juhal al-ummah, those who are among the ignorant nation. So sometimes you're part of an ignorant nation, but you had nothing to do with it. Sometimes you're an active member of that ignorant lot of people. Adin, somebody who moves quickly. Aghbash, from ghabasha, meaning darkness. Blind, the word ammin, Imam uses over here. Aqdul hudna, treaty or peace or truce. Ma'ul ajin, that is regularly used in Arabic, even in colloquial Arabic as well. Spoiled water that has gone bad. This ikhtilaf, whether Imam used the word iktafara or iktanaza from kanz, but rather kanz is ganj or treasure. Iktafara means to gather excessively. Now, both could be used over here, because Imam could be saying that these people, they gathered excessive wealth, or kanz mean they gathered a lot of treasure. Both could be used, and both versions are there as far as this khutbah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then of course there are a lot of other terminologies. We will skip past those terminologies. All right, let's get right to the commentary of it. So the second portion of this khutbah, it discusses gives five descriptions of the people. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, after providing a comprehensive description of the first group, turns to describe the attributes of the second group, and speaks of someone who is immersed into ignorance, and of course he's unaware of what he's doing. That's the biggest problem. A lot of time we give this istilah jahil murakkab, compound ignorant, and so yet considers himself to be knowledgeable, and without having prepared the means of greatness, assumes the position of the leadership. In a couple of days, you might see the same thing happening in the politics over here. So in the first stage, Imam describes 5 attributes of such people. Firstly, he says, Rajulun qamasha jahlan. He is a man who has amassed an abundance of ignorance and unawareness within himself. Considering the expression given by those who work with the lughat and lexicographers regarding the meaning of qamasha, which they interpret as gathering scattered or mismatched items. I don't know if you guys use this in Urdu. Is qamash ka aadmi hai, right? They use the word qamash. It's from the same root, because it's scattered. There's so many things that are opposite of this person that you call him to be qamash. Therefore, items or mismatched items or items that are worthless or little value, there's nothing to it, but this person is gathering it. The point on this term, in the words of Imam, becomes quite clear that these pretentious, ignorant scholars or these ignorant people who are pursue this pseudo knowledge that neither holds value nor shows logical coherence in its collection. So they may have a lot of istalahat and terminologies, but there's really no coherence in as far as their ilm is concerned. There's another commentator of Nahj al-Balaghah, Allama Khui, not Ayatullah Khui, there's another Khui that has passed. In his commentary on this statement, he explains that the intent to describe a person who gathers information from the mouths of people or unreliable narrations, anyone can approach those, or through analogies and similar sources. This collection, though large in volume, has very little or no value. That's how he explains. So Imam's exact example of Rajulun qamasha jahlan is not this person is not gathering ilm or knowledge. No, he is gathering ilm and knowledge. But this is worthless, has no value to it. Second description that Imam gives, he states, Muzi'un fi juhalil ummati. He rushes eagerly among the ignorant, hastening in all directions to gather followers and companions of his own kind around him. Now, of course, when people realize the pretentious nature of this person, those who are sahibane ilm, they will not go after this person, right? They will remain away from this person. So who is going to be going after this person? People that he likens himself, and he wants to bring them to closer. That they agree to his jahalat and his ignorance, and therefore he's going to go ahead and do whatever it is possible for him to amass these people around. Now this could be, if you look at it from the historical perspective, now we got to go back to history. Imam is saying all this in the historical background of that time, when he's now at the helm of leadership, and he's looking at all these people who are pretentious scholars. They have, a lot of following. Why do they have these following? You imagine the people like Talha and Zubair, and even the first 3 Khulafa and others, those who had a large number of followers. And then you have people like Qazi Shuraih in the history. Their role, they had a lot of following. And even today you find a lot of these people have following as well. So Imam is over here basically saying that these people then look for followers who are like them, because someone who is knowledgeable, someone who has ilm, they will not go after such individuals. So it is obvious that such individuals have no buyers except within that group, and they'll go ahead and buy these people. They'll go ahead and give money and take their vote. No pun intended. And they hold no place among the wise. So wise people of the community and the society, they'll say, well, we have nothing to do with this individual. He doesn't possess any knowledge, and he's going around on this buying spree. So their goal is to attract the attention of the ignorant and to infiltrate their ranks, because they are hopeless and despairing of ever entering the circle of the wise. Sort of like, you look at the politics of the world, not just here, but everywhere, the politics of the world. How people are true to what they have followed, and they're going to remain loyal to that. The third is, and they'll remain loyal to even what is happening, and all the things that became clear, the conviction, the insurrection, and all that stuff, still people will be very loyal to him. Number three, in the third description, Imam adds, "Adin fi aghbashil fitnateh." He rushes toward or forward in the darkness of turmoil. As I mentioned, the word ghabasha, singular of aghbash, is defined by the lexicographers as intense darkness. जब बहुत ज़्यादा अंधेरा हो जाए. So there are certain days during the year when it's darker than the others. Like, of course, the beginning of the moon phase, right? When moon crescent is sighted, those initial few nights are going to be very dark. As the moon grows and grows, now you're going to see more light at the night time. So, which is the best time for what? When it's dark and it's the peak of darkness. Moon is not even shining. It's the best time for the thieves to go out and do what they do at night time. Robbers to go ahead and operate. It becomes clear that these kind of people are always seeking to fish in the troubled water of turmoil. They consistently flee from light and seek refuge in darkness. They are waiting for darkness. They are longing for darkness. They want darkness. Darkness is in their favor. When darkness prevails, they make money. They go ahead and rob people. So they want darkness. If the darkness of turmoil fades and the light of knowledge and wisdom rises, their true nature would be exposed and they would be disgraced before everyone. So the world promotes or projects these opportunities where it exposes the dark faces of the people and they're exposed by their ill information or lack of information. Fourth description that Imam mentions, he points to another major misfortune of such a person by saying, Amin bima fi aqdil hudna. He's blind, remember the word blind? He's blind to the benefit of peace treaties among people. It is clear from the term hudna, which means calm or truce, here does not refer to peace between Muslims and non-Muslims, as this statement pertains to someone who, as evidenced by the statements that will come later on, refers to what happened baina hakamain. So a hakam went from Imam Ali's side, which Imam did not choose, and a hakam went from Muawiyah's side, and they went ahead and they did the treaty that they made between themselves. They say, you dissolve your leader, I'll dissolve my leader. And so Ash'ari, who had gone from Imam's side, or Shurai Qadi later on also played a similar role, went from Imam's side, dissolved, saying that I relieve Ali from the duties of Khalifa. The moment he said that, Amr ibn As did what? He backed away. So this is what Imam is referring to over here. He says, this person serves as a judge among the people. Therefore, it refers to fostering peace, reconciliation among the general public, and resolving disputes through compromise. In other words, hudna here is the opposite of fitna, as used here, mentioned in the previous sentence. So these types of people generally desire the flame of discord. That's what they did. They were able to divide the community to remain ablaze so they can achieve their malicious end dark. Not that Imams ever tried this. Of course, Imams never tried this. When do you see in the lives of 12 Imams the brightest of the time for an Imam to really shine the way Imam should have shined? In which Imam's time do you see that happening? Sixth Imam, right? Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. His time was the time when you see Imamat really shine. Not that other Imams didn't have the ability. No, of course they all did. But who was able to shine to the peak? Sixth Imam. Why? Umayyad and Abbasid are fighting. When there's collusion, when there's infighting going on between the two majority ruling parties, Democrats and the Republicans, what's happening? They're at teeth at each other, right? They're fighting. They're grabbing each other by the shoulder, by their necks. So this is where Imam has the time. Let them be busy in their turmoil. Let me go ahead and do my work. Imam was able to establish this university, preach and teach and do all that stuff because government was busy. They didn't have any time to see what Imam is doing. Well, you look in the time of Mutawakkil, for example. You look in the time of other, Mamun, for example. How, surveillance is being done on Imam of the Waqt, that he doesn't leave him alone in Medina. He brings him forward. You stay next to me. You stay close to me. I want to keep an eye on you. And if you go back to the other Imams as well, same thing would happen. 7th Imam is spending 14 years in prison. All these things you don't find in the time of 5th and especially the 6th Imam. So this person, what does he do? These people, what they're doing? They desire to keep the discord, the flame of discord ablaze. Let them continue to fight so they can achieve their malicious and dark purposes. Nobody will pay attention all the discrepancies that is happening because they're already busy with their own difficulties. If they understood that peace and harmony benefits everyone and that conflict and strife serve no one's interest, they would not pursue such actions. Indeed, such people are blind to understanding and perceiving this truth. Number 5, Imam, in the 5th description says, قَدْ سَمَّاهُ أَشْبَاهُ النَّاسِ عَالِمًا وَلَيْسَ بِهِ. Those who resemble humans call him a scholar, though he is not. Fundamentally, the same attraction that binds particles together in the heavens and the earth, with each entity drawn to its own kind, that is a natural phenomenon, a lesson of physics, maybe it's another day, is observed between this group and their followers as well. एक दूसरे को पसंद करते हैं क्यों? They like each other. They like their ideas and their interests, no matter how ignorant these ideas and interests may be. What a beautiful expression. Commentators are at awe when Imam uses this terminology. Let me zoom in for you. This terminology that Imam uses, or maybe not. قَدْ سَمَّاهُ أَشْبَاهُ النَّاسِ. I was reading through the commentaries and they're just amazed by this istilah, this terminology. And say, what a beautiful expression. The followers of these pretentious scholars are referred to as Ashbahun Nas. What is Ashbahun Nas? Those who resemble humans. Imam does not even consider them humans, they resemble humans. Indicating that human-like beings serving these false scholars, presenting two fabricated and deceptive faces of reality. Naturally, their resemblance to true humans is as superficial as their leaders' resemblance to genuine scholars and intellectuals. The same way their scholars are not genuine, their followers are also ingenuine. A mere external similarity. This expression is often used in cases where there's only an outward resemblance. Physically, maybe people are alike, but internally they are different. Such as Ya Ashbah al-Rijal in sermon number 27, Imam also uses the similar, but a little bit more, grievous, a little bit more fuel added to it. Here, at least Ashbahun Nas. Over there, Imam says what? Imam says, Ya Ashbah al-Rijal wala Rijala. Oh, those who semblance of men, yet you are not men. So it gets a little bit personal over there. But here at least Imam says Ashbahun Nas, those who look like people. There Imam says, oh, those who look like men, but you're not really men. So after these 5 descriptions, Imam turns to some of the vile and incorrect actions of this group, which are the direct result of their evident flaws and weakness. You guys up for it? Maybe 10 more minutes? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So Imam then, mentions these few results of, what their weaknesses were and what they went about doing them. Number 1, Imam says, Bakkara fastakthara min jam'in ma qalla minhu khayrun mimma kathur. When he wakes up in the morning, he has no task other than amassing things of which a little is better than much. Right? So this expression may refer to material and worldly possession. Someone who wakes up in the morning, goes after their routine, amassing wealth, amassing, thinking that this wealth will get me something. Now, of course, Imam is not talking about those people who are amassing wealth. Imam is talking about these pretentious scholars who are waking up in the morning, ways to go ahead and mislead people. What other ways can I find to go ahead and mislead people today? Because my false and fake knowledge can only last too long. It'll eventually run out. So I need to be creative with this every single day. So, this expression, as I said, could be material or worldly possession, where an excess often leads to heedlessness, arrogance, constant preoccupation with material matters, and a distance from spirituality. So you and I can also relate to an extent how much time sometimes we spend on social media, on wasteful things, which is occupying our mind, which is then, of course, in return, lacking in spirituality. In such cases, a smaller amount is better than a larger one, as modest sufficiency and restraint are closer to health and happiness than the excessive accumulation and pride. Too much could be counterproductive. Little might be actually better in this way. Alternately, it may point to the trivial talk, low value knowledge, and focusing on insignificant branches at the expense of essential principles and foundations. So people might go after things which are low value knowledge, insignificant. When you look at the tree, you got main branches and then you got the insignificant ones. They're not going after the main branches, they're going after the insignificant ones, which if they're chopped off, there's really no value to them. Some interpret it as referring to false opinions, corrupt beliefs, and this seems like unlikely, but some people have given these statements as well. Then Imam adds, he says, Hatta idhar tawa min ma'in ajinin, waqtathara or waqtanaza, both are used over here. Min ghayri ta'ilin, jalasa bayna an-nas qadiyan zaminan li takhlisi ma iltabasa ala ghayrihi. This state continues until he becomes sated with these stagnant waters. Ma'un ajin, water which is stagnant. Pani khada ho gaya bahut dinon se, standing water, not moving. What's going to happen to it? You can start changing its color, taste, and of course smell. This will happen to it. That's called ma'un ajin in Arabic. The ugliness and the corruption, amassing a wealth of useless matters in his mind and his thought. So his mind and thought is the one that is becoming ma'in ajin. Then he sits on the seat of judgment among the people, and astonishingly, this unworthy wretch guarantees to clarify and purify the truths and have become obscure to others. Now, while he's sitting on this kursi, he's going to say, well, let me go ahead and try and fix the things as well. Not knowing the reality himself, now he's going to go ahead and try and fix things in the world. I'm going to go ahead and fix this problem, I'm going to go ahead and fix this problem, I'm going to fix it. You don't know yourself what these problems and their A, B, C, D is. Hum Urdu mein kehte hain, alif be tak nahi pata. Now you're going to go ahead and start judging people based on that. So yes, this ignorant, misguided, and pretentious scholar, whose intellectual capital consists of handful of errors and trivial matters, whose mind and spirits are filled with stagnant water, as Imam is saying, the knowledge is nothing but stagnant water, of love for worldly gain and attachment for the glitter of the material world, occupies a position that none but the prophets, the infallible imams, or the rightful successors are worthy of. Imam is saying, how can you sit on this chair? The chair which was occupied by Rasulullah. The chair which was vacated by Rasulullah for the rightful successor. How can you sit on this? And then those who are worthy of it are now displaced. So as stated in a well-known narration which Imam Ali addressed to Shurai, Qazi Shurai and his judge, he said, Ya Shurai, Imam named him. قَدْ جَلَسْتَ مَجْلِسًا لَا يَجْلِسُهُ نَبِيٌّ أَوْ وَسِيٌّ أَوْ شَقِيٌّ. You sat on a chair, you sat in a position that none but a prophet, the successor of a prophet, or a wretched person should occupy? Look, the three people that Imam mentioned for this chair are who? Either Nabi, or his wali, or a shaqi. You're a shaqi, you're neither a Nabi nor neither a wali. So who's sitting on this chair now? A shaqi, a wretched individual. That's what's occupying this. So even worse is that he makes a grand claim. I intend to clarify the truth. I intend to fix the problem. Pretentious ignorance have always indulged in such lofty claims and foolish ambitions. We'll come up with a plan, we'll come up with a plan. He's coming up with a plan for the past 8 years, hasn't come up with a plan yet. Some commentators on the Balaghah added that not only in this time, but also in other era, there is no shortage of such pretentious ignorant amongst the people who occupy judicial seats, qazawat, those tainted by the allure of the worldly glitter. These are the very people who, if true justice was served, would be alongside criminals in the depths of the prison. So those who are content merely with memorizing a few legal clauses and suffice with the superficial study of judicial books from east and west, ratta laga liya hai, memorize kar liya hai, and that's it. They're going to be using that, but do not have the actual knowledge. Now let's see what this ignorant, clueless person who occupies the seat of judgment does in practice. Thus Imam turns to the third when he says, فَإِن نَزَلَتْ بِهِ إِحْدَى الْمُبْهَمَاتِ هَيَّأَ لَهَا حَشْوًا رَثًّا مِنْ رَأْيِهِ ثُمَّ قَطَعَ بِهِ. At this point, whenever, of course, he's going to face some tough questions, right? How is he going to dodge these? At this point, whenever he faces an ambiguous issue, mubham, what does he do? He prepares for himself, useless thoughts and hollow words to clarify it. We will do this, we will do this, we will do that, we will do that. And from these incorrect premises, he draws conclusion and then rules based on his incorrect outcome. The expression, Imam says, hashwan rathan min ra'ihi, meaning superfluous and useless things, meaning an old and decayed, seems to indicate that he is neither creative, nor does he possess a sharp and clear mind, nor can he gather useful evidence to reach his goal. It is clear that such invalid and corrupt premise can never bring true certainty. It'll always leave people punching for their thirst. They'll always be thirsty. They'll never be satiated by the promises this person is making, by continuous lies this person is given. He deceives people by feigning certainty, and even if there were certainty, since he pursued the wrong path, his premises out of negligence, he is never excused before Allah. Then Imam says, فَهُوَ مِنْ لَبْسِ الشُّبُهَاتِ فِي مِثْلِ نَسْجِ الْعَنْكَبُوتِ. Now, a reference to Ankabut. Ankabut, spider, right? Just like we have Surah Ankabut, there's a reason why Allah mentions Ankabut. Imam does the same thing. Amidst the many doubts surrounding him, he is like a spider weaving webs around itself and relying on them. What does the spider do? This is the world that a spider has. Nothing beyond the spider's web. Beyond that has no control. Within this has every control. Webs that are extremely fragile and baseless. That is another reason Imam is using this example. That this pretentious pseudo-alim, a scholar, has made this web which is very fragile. It'll break so easily. Anyone who has a little bit of knowledge sits with this person will be able to break him apart in few words and few terminology. Won't be able to stand too long with a real scholar. Unable to withstand rain, not a mere breeze, even unable to bear the slightest weight of dust. None of these things could be, they can pose a challenge to a spider's web, breaking apart and hanging loosely from the ceiling, as sometimes you see, and then you have to clean it up. Imam compares such arrogant, weak-minded, ignorant people to the spider that weaves web for itself. So indeed, this person too, with his web, catches only ignorant people. Who's going to be trapped into it? Into the spider's web. This weak web, people of such knowledge or people of such weight little small little flies, mosquitoes or flies or these things will be caught into. Little insects are the ones that will be caught into the web. You can't expect some bigger fish to be caught into this web, right? Only small little things. So they are like themselves. Thus, he's like a spider, his thoughts are like a fragile web, and his prey are similarly insignificant and knowledge-deprived, deceived individual. Imam says what then? He said, La yadri asaba am akhta'a. Fa in asaba khafa an yakuna qad akhta'a. Wa in akhta'a raja an yakuna qad asaba. This unfortunate person treads this dangerous path, not knowing whether he has judged correctly or erred. For this reason, if by chance he has followed the correct path, he fears that he may have made a mistake. And if he has followed the wrong path, he hopes that by coincidence, it may turn out to be my correct judgment. Of course, this requires in-depth analysis, and I don't want to leave it in a haste so that we don't get to the proper understanding of it. But you got the gist of what Imam is trying to tell us over here, and inshallah we'll do the conclusion next week, picking up from here. And lastly, the complaint of Imam in the end of this khutbah. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Yes. Mm-hmm. So what can Imam do? What is possible for Imam at this moment where he is, when he comes into power, he has very little that he can do because he's engaged in these civil wars that are happening around him. There are people that are imposing things at him. So within his 4 years of his rulership, he can't do much about it anyway. And then the first 25 years of his life, when he was sort of like in house arrest, in the time of the first 3 khulafa, Imam couldn't do anything anyway. In fact, there's a bigger question. Forget about these worldly affairs where it requires, to have a lot of following. You can't do it by yourself. Remember, Imam kept on saying, if you bring 4 people, in the time of the first 3 khulafa, when people came to Imam and said, "Oh Imam, we are with you, why don't you stand and take our stand and we will rise with you." Imam said, there's a history where Imam says, okay, why don't you go and tomorrow all of you come back with your heads shaved. And only 4 people showed up. Imam said, it's someone who can't even give hair for my sake, how are they going to give their necks, right? So there's not much that Imam can do at this point. So when he comes into power, at least what he has the pulpit. So he addresses it openly, calling names and calling these people out. So in 25 years, he couldn't even do that because he didn't have a member. Now at least he has a member, so he calls people out openly. And that's why many of the scholars of Ahl Sunnah have problem with Nahj al-Balaghah. They said this cannot be the word of Imam Ali, who was so fond of the Khulafa, who was so fond of these people. This cannot be the word. This is something which Syed Rizvi concocted and made it himself. So no, Imam, of course, in 4 years of his rulership, Imam is busy with infighting. And so when you're busy with these fights, how are you going to be able to go ahead and address many of these issues? In fact, you didn't ask for this, but leading up to this as well, is a lot of people question why didn't Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, take Fadak back. Fadak that the Shias talk about all the time. Why didn't Imam, when he's in power, why doesn't he go ahead and take Fadak back? Imam could easily take it back, right? Now he's the ruler. So who's alive at this time that is the inheritor of Fadak? Imam Ali is the inheritor because his wife's property goes to who? To the husband. So Imam is the plaintiff. Who's the defendant? The hukumat. Whose hands is the hukumat in? Imam Ali. So he's the plaintiff and he's the defendant. So he's going to fight the case against himself. That's why he didn't go after that. He said, if I go and take this fadak, that means I'm fighting for this with me, the hukumat. Does that make any sense? So Imam did not go bother. And secondly, Imam, of course, did not even have opportunity as he was busy with all the other things that were happening. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. بسم الله.